AITA for refusing to take my girlfriend to nice places because she eats like a kid. I've been with my girlfriend for about a year now, and, well, there's something I need to get off my chest that's been bugging me for a while. She's an amazing person, funny, caring, and genuinely great to be around, but she's an incredibly picky eater. And by picky, I mean she eats like she's still 10 years old. I'm not exaggerating. It's becoming such a point of contention in our relationship that I need some outside perspective. Let me paint you a picture. My girlfriend's diet consists almost entirely of what you'd find at a kid's birthday party: chicken tenders, fries, burgers, no weird toppings, just cheese, and only sharp cheddar, and maybe mac and cheese. She doesn't like unflavored water, it has to be something flavored, otherwise she won't drink it. Fish is a big no unless we're talking fried shrimp, and even then it needs to be a specific type of shrimp. Bones in food, no way. Onions, garlic, anything remotely spicy, not happening. She refuses pasta unless it's drenched in ketchup, no cream or anything else. Citrus, sausage, and basically any non-American food are also off limits. She's also not a fan of pastries with fruit, no croissants filled with jam, no Danish, nothing. Eggs are gross to her in any form. If you add aioli, she pushed the plate away, and don't even get me started on potatoes. If they're not in the form of French fries, she's not touching them. Now, this really stands in stark contrast to me. I've lived all over the US, in different regions, and even spent a few years living abroad, which really expanded my palate. I grew up with a try-everything-once mentality when it comes to food, and I'm not afraid of trying dishes from different cultures. I genuinely enjoy good food. It's one of those things that brings me a lot of joy, whether it's a taco from a hole-in-the-wall taqueria or a delicately prepared sashimi platter at a fancy Japanese place. When we go out together, it's a little frustrating, to say the least. I'll suggest a new restaurant or some type of cuisine we've never tried, and her first instinct is to scan the menu for fries, or maybe a burger. I remember the first time we went to an authentic Nepalese restaurant. I was excited to have her try some of the dishes I'd experienced before, thinking maybe she'd at least be curious. She ended up ordering white rice and a side of French fries. And while I get that not everyone is adventurous when it comes to food, part of me couldn't help but feel disappointed. It's like she wasn't even willing to step a tiny bit out of her comfort zone, not even for me. And then there are the times we go to places with a dress code. You know, those occasions where we both dress up nice, and I want it to feel like a special night out. We'll get seated, looking sharp, and the server will come over to take our order. I'll look through the menu, getting excited over the chef's specials, and she goes straight for the chicken tenders and fries. It's just a bit awkward, like we're paying for a gourmet experience and she's ordering something we could easily get from the kids section of the menu. And when the bill comes, I can't help but cringe a little. I'm paying $15 for chicken tenders when I could literally buy a giant bag of frozen ones at Walmart for a fraction of the cost. It probably sounds petty, but it's not just the money. It's more that I feel like there's no reason for us to go somewhere fancy if we're not really going to experience what makes it special. A big part of the experience of eating at a nice restaurant is trying the chef's creations and enjoying the food as it's meant to be prepared. It's about tasting flavors you don't normally have and sharing something new. And I feel like I'm just doing that alone, while she's sitting across from me eating the same thing she'd have at home. Don't get me wrong, I've tried to be understanding. I get that people like what they like, and I've never wanted to push her to eat something she's uncomfortable with. I've always been polite about it and tried to make sure she doesn't feel pressured. I've reassured her that if there's nothing on a menu she's excited about, we can always find somewhere else to eat. But after a year of this, it's becoming harder and harder not to get frustrated. It's the same conversation every time we go out, and it just seems like we're never on the same page about food. Things recently came to a head when a new dinner spot opened up in our area. It's a really nice restaurant, with great reviews, and the kind of place that I've been looking forward to trying for a while. My girlfriend heard about it and immediately told me she wanted us to go. She was really excited, which I found kind of surprising since she's usually not that enthusiastic about new places. I checked out the menu, and it looked fantastic but, I'll be honest, also a bit pricey. The kind of place where the entrees start at around $30 and go up from there. I wasn't against going. I love nice dinners and sharing experiences with her, but in the back of my mind, I had this sinking feeling that we were just going to end up in the same situation as always. A couple of days before we were supposed to go, I casually asked her what she was thinking about ordering. She looked at the menu on her phone and, without missing a beat, said, "Probably the chicken tenders and fries." I tried to keep my cool, but I think something just kind of snapped. I asked her what the point of us going was if she was just going to order chicken tenders again, especially since we could just buy them and make them at home for a lot less. She gave me this look like I'd just slapped her. She asked why I had to say it like that, why I had an attitude. I told her that I didn't mean to be rude, but I just felt like it was kind of ridiculous for us to go to a nice place, dress up, and spend all this money if she was just going to eat something that we could make at home with zero effort. I told her I wasn't calling her a little kid, but it was hard not to feel like it was childish when she refused to even try anything different. That's when she lost it. She said I was being condescending, that I was acting like I thought I was better than her because I liked fancy food and she didn't. She told me I was making her feel bad for something that shouldn't even matter, and that it felt like I was shaming her for her tastes. I tried to explain that it wasn't about me thinking I was better, it was more that I felt like she wasn't willing to share in experiences that were important to me. I told her that I wanted to share more with her, and food is a big part of that for me. But she wasn't having it. She said I was being an elitist, that I was making something small into a big deal, and that I was unfairly judging her. I could see she was hurt, but I was also frustrated. I've tried so hard to accommodate her tastes and make sure she's comfortable, but it feels like it's always a one-way street. I'm always the one compromising, and she's never willing to meet me halfway. The argument ended with her saying that if I didn't want to go, then we just wouldn't, and we haven't talked about it since. The dinner is off, and things have been a little tense between us. I don't know if I went too far, or if I'm just finally being honest about something that's been bothering me for a long time. I love her, but I feel like we're at an impasse. I don't want food to be the thing that causes problems between us, but it's becoming more and more of a sticking point. After the argument that night, things remained tense between me and my girlfriend. It was one of those situations where we were just avoiding the subject entirely because neither of us wanted to touch that sore spot again. But the thing was, I couldn't get it out of my head. It kept gnawing at me. I love her, and I didn't want something like our food preferences to drive a wedge between us. I wanted to find a way to bridge this gap, to show her that trying new things could be enjoyable, maybe even fun, especially if it was done in the right context. Maybe what was missing was a little romance, a setting where she'd feel comfortable enough to step outside of her comfort zone at least a little. So, I decided I was going to surprise her with something different. I wanted to create a memorable evening that wasn't just about food, but about us. I thought that maybe if I could control the environment, make it really special and intimate, it would help soften her resistance. The idea was to create a romantic, home-cooked dinner, something just for the two of us. I wanted her to see that food could be more than just a means to fill your stomach. It could be an experience, an expression of love, something that brought people closer together. I started planning it out meticulously. I wanted everything to be perfect. I researched recipes that were unique but not intimidating, dishes that had bold flavors but also a certain comfort to them. I chose to make a creamy garlic butter Tuscan chicken, a delicate risotto with mushrooms and white wine, and a light salad with a homemade vinaigrette. I also made some sides, roasted vegetables, garlic bread, and even a small cheese platter for us to nibble on. For dessert, I baked a lemon tart, something fresh and not overly sweet. I figured that even if she was wary of some of the main dishes, there would be enough variety for her to find something she liked. Setting up the apartment was the next part. I cleaned everything thoroughly, making sure that the dining area looked impeccable. I got some candles, lots of them, so that the room would be bathed in a soft, warm glow. I picked up some fresh flowers for the table and set out my nicest plates and silverware. I wanted this to feel like the kind of romantic evening we'd share at a high-end restaurant, only in the comfort of our own space. I even made a playlist of soft jazz and acoustic tunes to play in the background, something to create the perfect ambience. When everything was ready, I called my girlfriend over to the kitchen, but I didn't want her to see what I had set up right away. I had a blindfold ready, and when she arrived, I gently put it over her eyes. She looked a bit curious and hesitant, but she let me lead her, and I guided her from the living room into the dining area. I could feel my heart pounding a little. This was a risk, after all. I was putting a lot of effort into this, hoping that she'd appreciate it and that maybe she'd be willing to step out of her usual comfort zone for me. When we reached the dining area, I took off the blindfold. Her reaction was immediate. She gasped softly, and I could see her eyes widen as she took in the scene. The flickering candles, the beautifully set table, the music kit was all there to create an atmosphere that was just for us. She smiled at me, a bit stunned, and I could see that she appreciated the effort. She looked around, and I could see the genuine surprise in her eyes, which made me feel like maybe this would be the breakthrough I'd been hoping for. I pulled out her chair for her, and she sat down, still taking everything in. The look on her face was one of amazement, and it made me happy to know that I'd surprised her in a good way. I began serving the dishes, starting with the Tuscan chicken, then adding a bit of the risotto and some of the salad to her plate. I poured her a glass of sparkling water with a slice of lemon in it, hoping it would be a nice touch since I knew she didn't like unflavored water. I put a plate of garlic bread in the center of the table, something familiar for her, as a sort of peace offering in case she was feeling overwhelmed. She looked at her plate, and I could sense her hesitation almost immediately. She wasn't exactly hiding it. She stared at the chicken, the creamy sauce pooling around it, and then glanced at the risotto, her brow furrowed slightly. I could see her apprehension, and I tried to stay positive, hoping that she'd at least give it a try. I sat down across from her, and we started to eat, or, rather, I started to eat while she looked at her plate. I took a bite, smiled at her, and told her how excited I was for her to try it. She hesitated for a moment longer, then picked up her fork. I watched as she moved it around her plate, poking at the chicken a little, almost as if she were examining it. She cut off a small piece, speared it with her fork, and brought it up to her mouth. I could see her reluctance, but she took the bite, and for a second, I was hopeful. Maybe she'd like it. Maybe she'd realize that it wasn't so bad, that this was something new she could enjoy. But almost immediately, I could see it in her face she didn't like it. She chewed for a moment, swallowed, and then put her fork down. She didn't say anything at first, just looked at me, and I knew what was coming before she even said it. She asked me if I had made a burger, fries, or something else she was more comfortable with. My heart sank a little. I'd hoped that the effort I'd put into everything, the atmosphere, the food, the thoughtfulness, might help her be a bit more open. But it was clear that she just wasn't into it. I told her that I hadn't made those things, that I'd prepared these dishes because I wanted us to try something special together. I explained that I'd put a lot of thought into making something different, something that I hoped we could both enjoy. I tried to keep my voice light, but I could hear a bit of the disappointment creeping in. I'd imagined this evening as a moment where we could connect over something new, where maybe she'd take a step toward trying something that mattered to me. She looked at her plate again, then back at me, and shook her head slightly. She said she wasn't going to eat it. She said it as if it were just a fact, something non-negotiable. She picked up her fork again but just moved the food around, not taking another bite. I tried to smile, tried to keep my face from showing how much that hurt, but I'm pretty sure she could see it. The rest of the meal was quiet. I ate, and she mostly sat there, occasionally taking a bite of garlic bread, but she didn't touch the chicken or the risotto again. I could feel the disappointment settling in my chest, heavier with each passing moment. I'd gone into this evening with so much hope, so much excitement. I'd wanted this to be a moment where we broke through the wall that seemed to be growing between us, but instead, it felt like I'd just built another one. I realized then that it wasn't just about the food, it was about her willingness to try, to meet me in the middle, to take that step towards something that mattered to me, and she just wouldn't. When we finished, I started clearing the plates, and she got up, thanking me for the effort I'd put into everything. She said it was sweet of me to do all of this, but there was an awkwardness in her voice, a distance that wasn't there before. I nodded, told her it was okay, but inside, I felt a mixture of sadness and frustration. I had hoped that maybe, if she saw the effort, if she felt the love I'd put into it, she'd be willing to take that leap. After the disappointing dinner at home, things between us felt strained. The silence that followed was filled with unspoken words, both of us carrying around the weight of the evening. I knew that my intentions had been good, that I'd tried to bridge the gap between us, but it had only highlighted the distance instead. We didn't talk much about what had happened, but the tension was there. It wasn't always obvious, it came out in small ways, awkward pauses in conversation, moments where I tried to get close and she pulled away, or when we decide on what to eat and she'd pick something simple, almost as if she was drawing a line. I was determined, though. I thought maybe the atmosphere had been wrong. Maybe cooking at home, with all that pressure of trying to make something special, had backfired. Maybe if I tried again in a different setting, I could turn this around. I didn't want to give up on the idea of her being open to new experiences. I still believed that if we found the right moment, the right place, and if the situation was out of my control, maybe she'd relax and try something different without the pressure. I suggested we go out for dinner a few nights later. I picked a nice restaurant, one that was a little fancy but not overly pretentious. It had an atmosphere that felt like an experience, elegant but not intimidating. When we got there, I decided I would take a different approach this time. Instead of discussing what to order, I told her that I wanted to handle it. I was going to pick the dishes for both of us. I could see the hesitation in her eyes immediately, and she pushed back a little. It was clear that she wasn't comfortable with the idea of someone else deciding what she'd eat, but I insisted, trying to frame it as part of the experience, as if it were an adventure we were going on together. After some reluctance, she gave in, albeit begrudgingly. I scanned the menu carefully. I wanted to pick something that might appeal to her, something that was flavorful and interesting but not too intimidating. I chose a dish that I thought was familiar enough while still being a step up from what she was used to: chicken marsala with a rich mushroom sauce, served with creamy mashed potatoes and roasted vegetables. For myself, I picked something I'd been eager to try, a seared duck breast with a blackberry reduction. I hoped that if she saw me enjoying my dish, maybe she'd be encouraged to try her own. The restaurant's ambience was perfect: soft lighting, the murmur of people talking and enjoying themselves, waitstaff moving smoothly between tables. Everything felt relaxed, and I tried to keep the mood light, joking with her and holding her hand across the table. When our dishes arrived, they were beautifully plated. The aromas were incredible, and I felt a small surge of hope. Maybe this would be the breakthrough I'd been hoping for. I dug into my duck first, savoring the first bite. It was delicious, tender, flavorful, the sauce balancing the richness of the meat perfectly. I turned my gaze to her, watching as she picked up her fork and looked down at her plate. I could see her hesitation again. She poked at the food, and I could feel my heart rate pick up slightly. She cut a small piece of the chicken, speared it with her fork, and brought it to her mouth. I held my breath, waiting for her reaction. She chewed slowly, her face giving nothing away at first. Then, her brow furrowed slightly, and I knew it wasn't going well. She put the fork down and shook her head, pushing the plate slightly away from herself. She leaned back in her chair, looking at me, and I could feel the frustration starting to bubble up inside me again. She moved her plate to my side of the table, a clear indication that she was done with it. She said, without words, that I'd made this choice, so I should be the one to deal with it. I tried to mask my disappointment, but it was difficult. I had wanted this to be a moment where we could share something, where she could trust me enough to take that leap, but it was clear she wasn't interested. I forced myself to smile, trying to make light of it, but there was an ache in my chest that I couldn't ignore. I was running out of ways to reach her, and each attempt seemed to be pushing her further away rather than bringing us closer. After a moment, she called the waiter over and ordered herself a burger and fries. She didn't look at me as she did it, and I could feel the awkwardness settling in. I was trying not to let it bother me, but the truth was that it did. It wasn't just the food, it was the feeling that she wasn't willing to meet me halfway, that she was closed off to anything I suggested, anything that took her out of her comfort zone. The burger and fries arrived quickly, and she dug in, clearly more comfortable now that she had something familiar in front of her. I watched her eat, feeling a sense of resignation wash over me. I picked at my own plate, alternating between my duck and the untouched chicken marsala she'd left next to me. I tried to focus on the flavors, tried to enjoy the meal, but it was hard. There was an invisible barrier between us, something that had started to grow a while ago but was becoming more and more tangible with each passing moment. I could see that she was happy enough now, enjoying her burger, dipping her fries into ketchup, her demeanor relaxed again. But it was that very ease that highlighted how far apart we really were. The rest of the dinner was filled with small talk, but there was a sense of disconnection that neither of us could ignore. I could feel my frustration building, not just with her but with myself as well. I was pushing for something that clearly wasn't working, and I didn't know how to change course. I loved her, but I wanted more from our relationship, more experiences, more shared moments, more willingness to grow together. And it was becoming increasingly clear that she wasn't interested in that kind of growth. She wanted what was comfortable, what was known, what didn't challenge her. After we paid the bill, we left the restaurant, and the silence between us felt heavy. We walked back to the car, and though we were side by side, it felt like there was a chasm between us. I realized then that maybe I was asking too much of her, or maybe we were just fundamentally different in ways that couldn't be reconciled. It wasn't just about food, it was about our approaches to life, our willingness to try new things, to embrace change, to step out of the comfort zones that defined us. So, Reddit, am I the asshole here? Should I just let it go and accept that this is the way she is? Or do I have a point in wanting her to be a bit more open to new experiences?